Welcome to my studio. So as I showed you with my initial thumbnails, I'll do the same. A real fast, what are the big shapes? Right there, I'm placing those big shapes, making a decision, okay, this is what my painting is about. It's about a big mountain with some small shapes of rocks in the foreground. I'm getting my shape distribution in that first initial thumbnail. If it's not interesting there, I won't go further. And if I can't understand it at that quick level, there's no reason to go further. Here I'll now work some other thumbnails fairly quickly. Of course, once again, this is speeded up, but these are fairly quick. I'm not trying to photographically render these drawings. I'm trying to put down enough information to see if I'm interested enough to develop this painting further. So the name of the game now is exploration, and you can do as few or as many thumbnails as you'd like. I find the more you do, the more you push yourself to design new ideas or go places you didn't expect. And you don't always have to do these right before you start painting. You can fill sketch pads with ideas. So when you are ready to paint, you already have some ideas to work off of. So now we'll try different compositions and different frames, different proportions of canvas size to see if I find a better shape. My first one I like, but I want to take some different ideas. Maybe this isn't the best shape. So maybe a little bit more horizontal. Here, what if we pull the mountain off the top? One great way to show size is to have the top of the, have something come out the top of the composition to show that it's just too big to even see. Here I'm going to go a lot more horizontal. Just exploring. This is an exploring stage. And here I'm liking the design shapes. I think they're really interesting, but it certainly doesn't show size to the mountain. So looking at these, I think the one that I did first is the one I will develop further. And so I now will start sketching with the idea of more understanding. Those were, do I like where the shape placement is? But now I'm going to be really drawing directionally, feeling the planes, because as we talked about in temperature, a plane change is going to be a temperature change and possibly a value change. So I want to understand what is the form of this mountain. And the more I understand it drawing, it's going to be that much easier when I paint it, because then my strokes will be a lot more directional. So building down through this, understanding what's light, what's dark, what's going with which direction with the plane, but still keeping somewhat true to my first idea of how these shapes will go together as I build these boulders at the bottom. When I'm combining reference for an oil painting, I like that reference to be from the same area, because when I paint it, I want to make sure these boulders are made out of the same material of the landscape of the same place. Like this is all British Columbia. I don't want to take the Sierras and put a tree from the Sierras up in Canada, because we may have a different tree. In fact, we do have different trees up in the mountains. So I will take reference from a close geographical area. It's interesting, the more we will study how trees or rocks, waves, buildings, you name it, how anything works, we study it to learn more about it, but at the end, we are just making shapes. And it actually becomes easier at one point when you start saying, I'm painting shape, I'm painting atmosphere, I'm painting air, I'm painting how light reacts. And I'm doing the same with drawing. In this, I'm really, even though these are trees and rocks and a mountain, I'm really developing it just in the interest of shape design. So now I'm going to work in value, going straight, no drawing, just straight to shape. Now more familiar, so I should be able to put this in fairly quickly. I'm going to work in 4 values, and I could have done this in Portland grays like I've shown in oil paint, but I did this digitally. And I'm making decisions of my value pattern, my value grouping, and how things are going to work together. If I can't simplify in drawing, and I can't simplify in value, and I can't simplify in color at these quicker, kind of seeing the whole idea stage, it's going to be that much harder when I try to paint a final painting. All this preparatory work only helps you so in the end your brushwork is more free, your painting is more free because you've put the time in before, so you're not trying to solve the problems on the fly in your painting. You still are. There still is that. I don't do so much that I'm just redoing all the same thing. I'm just trying to build my understanding. As you can see, I'm repainting over that side. I first said that the shadow side of the mountain was all dark, but now I have to show the difference between the shadow in the rock and the shadow in the snow. I'm lacking values, so I'm choosing to use the values of the sky as the same value as the shadow in the snow. Can you see that? You're really working your brain when you're reducing values instead of, hey, I'll just put more value to make it work. By reducing this, it's actually making more solid image. I am painting this whole thing with just a round brush. If you see the different shapes I'm creating, it's just because I'm carving back in and out. And you'll see that's something I do constantly. So now as I finish up with this, I'll duplicate it. And now let's work over it in color. As you can see, I'm not just taking the color from the photo reference because photo reference does lie. It's going to be too contrasty, too harsh. And especially in this, because I'm combining photo reference, the top photo reference is not showing me atmosphere because I don't have anything in my foreground. So you can see I'm pulling the value of the shadow side of the rocks on the mountain a bit lighter. And of course, more muted because we don't want to, I'm putting a lot of understanding into this. This is the big advantage of painting outside is I did paint up in British Columbia. And so even though I didn't paint this exact scene of the mountain on top, I do have an understanding of how that works. So the more you can get outside, the more you can feel and get the understanding of value and atmospheric perspective. So in creating an image or an artwork, I am constantly trying to look for the simple statement. It may be intricate within the details of it in the way I relate my colors within the big value shapes, but it's surprising how hard it is to make the simple statement. When you first paint, you want to paint every blade of grass and every eyelash, but it doesn't create a stronger, better image. It's just too much information. A lot of times I think about it like if you're giving a report to the CEO. The CEO of the company doesn't want a 20-page report. The CEO wants a one-page synopsis of everything that's going on. Another way to think of it is we're not a dictionary, we're not an encyclopedia, we're a poet. And a poet doesn't write a 5-page every detail about this mountain and trees. He poetically talks about what it felt like to be there. So the poet is reducing all that information into an artistic statement. So I'm working here atmospheric perspective where I am, you can notice in the distant mountain it's more muted compared to the foreground. Those greens are more saturated than the blues and the blue-gray of the mountain. And that's going to help pull forward the value in the mountain. I did not go off the shadow side of the rock. I didn't go as dark as I did in my grayscale because I want it to sit back. So you can see my darker values are all happening in the foreground. And keeping the distance muted, keeping the values closer together are going to help create that atmospheric perspective. So now this is a stage of like, okay, I've solved some problems in value. I've solved some problems in color. I want to move on now to get into oil paint. And let's see how this works out.